Today on the channel, we're going to take a look at Guitar World from September 1991, where Van Halen returns. Okay, so here is Guitar World from September 1991. And there's Edward with a awesome purple Music Man guitar. Just beautiful looking guitar. Got Van Halen Returns, plus Michael Anthony, Van Halen's Iron Man. Got some stuff about Jake E. Lee in here. Dimebag Darrell, Jane's Addiction, Dave Navarro. Got some good transcriptions. So let's dig in. All right. A couple advertisements there, some strings. I remember these Ibanez Voyager guitars. I think Red Beach from Winger played one of these. Am I wrong? That was a long time ago. That was 32 years ago. All right, there's B.B. King. I'd love to get one of these Lucille guitars. I've never played one. Tony Montana from Great White. Once Bitten, Hooked. Great White. Jason Becker doing the SIT commercial there. Stay in Tune strings. Remember those? Skid Row doing the business. They were promoting Slave to the Grind. How about that? Slave to the Grind was fresh out. It's one thing I like about looking at these old magazines is I forget what albums came out in what year, and it's a good refresher. Joe Pass. Advertising on the Epiphone there. The Emperor. Here we got the sounding board. A lot of people here complaining about stuff about Yngwie. People used to get so excited and hot about stuff, they'd write these letters in. Your magazine is the best one out there, but you could be so much better if you gave the teenage whiz kids a break and did a story on or two on real men who play real guitar. Yeah, they're ugly, and they don't look good in makeup. But Blackfoot's Ricky Medlock and the guys in the Ricky Medlock and the guys in Outlaws and Molly Hatchet play ass-kicking Southern rock. I saw a crate at a Guitar Center today. A crate head they wanted $440 for, all tube head. I considered it, but I never was a crate fan. All right, tune-ups. What have we got here? Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist. Steve Gaines with Van Zant's brother Johnny. I played a gig in Nashville and opened up a show for Johnny Van Zant, and they didn't have any backline equipment and the really good equipment, and the guitar player asked me if he could borrow my JCM 800. And I agreed. I let him play my JCM 800, so I had to stay for their entire show. And let me say, it was a good show, but they played Southern rock, and they played for like 3 hours. I never thought I was going to get out of that club, but I needed my JCM 800. Thunder's Luke Morley. You ever heard of Thunder? I haven't. Charlie's Angels. Funky time for rock. This was right when grunge was really starting to take foot. A lot of these guys were soon to be never seen again. Well, seen for 20 years or so, kind of like Brian Forsyth in Kicks. This article, he's talking about how he takes he has a Maryland home in a smokehouse where guitars hang from strings like salami above a tray of 10 smoking cigarettes. I don't even smoke, Brian says. I just buy cigarettes to blow on my guitars. Boy, I bet you those guitars stink. Or stunk. I don't like that idea. Rory Block, Lady Plays the Blues. Never heard of her. Haha, check this out. We got Billy Corgan. Smashing Pumpkins. This was the turning of the tide. Guitar Sam. Melody Maker. Mike Campbell. I just watched a Gibson video with Mike Campbell. The collection. If you have not checked out the Gibson videos on YouTube for the collection series, they're great. They're really long, and the Mike Campbell one is super interesting. Some of these guys have got just staggering guitar collections, and he is no exception. This dude has got some vintage Fenders, Gibsons, Country Gentlemen. I mean, he's got it all. It's pretty amazing. Look at this. Metallica, August 12th. So this being the September issue, that means it came out in August, early August, so this ad was apropos. But that's a Metallica ad for the Black Album. That's cool. That's real cool. Stu Ham, Rock Bottom. Given to the urge that takes the rock out of the road. What have we got here? Young Guns 2. Let's see what we got for Young Guns. Gary Hoey playing that reverse headstock hammer. That looks pretty cool. John Axtell and Adam Ellis from Psychofunkapus. Psychofunkapus. Nah, let's see. I don't think I heard of those guys. Tristan. Matt Prudhoe. Tommy Bolin of Freight Train Jane. And Gerard Zappa and Adam Holland of Valentine. All these bands right here, all this on this page. They nothing. Tide's returning in 1991. Sad, but a necessity in the entertainment business. The Two Jakes. What have we got here on this left page? Speed versus Feel. Rock star versus serious musician. With Badlands Voodoo Highway, Jake E. Lee sets out to prove he has his cake and he can eat it too. Some guys want to be rock stars rather than musicians, says Jake E. Lee, scornfully, and they'll do whatever it takes and go in any direction an outside producer pushes them in order to reach that goal. His eyes masked by dark sunglasses, Lee sits smoking on a plush couch in a cramped office on the Manhattan headquarters of Atlantic Records. But I fought hard to have control of what we do because I'm a guitarist, he says, leaning forward to extinguish a Marlboro. Guitar World had really fun journalism. All right. Kind of weird ad there. Was it a big change for you to produce this record? No, because we actually produced the first record too. Atlantic signed us to a decent amount of money, and they weren't about to let a brand new band produce its debut album. So we got Paul O'Neill. I need to check out Badlands. All my friends tell me how great that album is. I never was really into Jake E. Lee. I never disliked him, but he was never my favorite player. And everybody says Badlands, that album is amazing, that first album. And the second one. It's all right now. Greg Chasen, Badlands bassist. They're getting a lot of publicity done. That's cool. That gold PRS. Jake E. Lee had a column here. Jake E. Lee believes there's nothing worse than a predictable or staid approach to the art of rhythm guitar. I'm surprised more people don't feel the same way. He says, after all, you spend most of your time on stage playing rhythm. He's got a good point there. It's a pretty in-depth article with some licks from Jake. Dave Navarro, Jane's Addiction, Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, Butthole Surfers, Paul Leary. All right. Confessions of a Session Monster. There's Steve Morse. This much better. I've seen some, if you watched any of my prior videos of me reviewing these magazines, there's one clip of a picture of Steve Morse where he's got the worst haircut in the world. It was a little better there. I like him with his long hair. Cool Charvels there. I always thought carvings were cool. They used neck-through bodies. You had to order directly from Carvin, so they were a little less expensive. I heard they were nice. Heard the pickup sounded good. Here's the Jane's Addiction. Been Caught Stealing. A lot of jangly stuff going on here. There's Wholehearted by Extreme. That's a great acoustic song to learn how to play. A lot of really good riffs in there. I learned that back in the day. A lot of ads in this. Art, still pushing the art stuff. Oh, here's Mikey. Advertising Ampeg stuff. Mikey looking happy. Rocking the high tops. All right, here's Ed. A rejuvenated Edward Van Halen unveils a new amp, a new guitar, a new album, a new producer, a new son, and reclaims his title as the world's greatest rock guitarist. Lord of the Strings. Check out how they word these articles. Turn left. Watch that curve. Associate publisher Greg DiBenedetto looks highly annoyed at my feeble attempt to navigate the treacherous and confusing mountain road and leads to 5150, Edward Van Halen's legendary home studio in Los Angeles. You idiot, hisses DiBenedetto. Pay attention to the damn signs, you fool. Don't you know what happens to New Yorkers who lose their way out in the vicious outback of Hollywood Hills? Buzzard bait. What journalism, man. My first instinct is to reprimand the man for his sharp-tongued babble, but his frenzied expression makes me think twice. It's not a good policy to mess with serious Van Halen zealot, particularly when barreling down the Baja at 87 miles per hour in an unstable Galaxy 500. Unfortunately, I think there's one page missing in here because I probably took out a picture and hung it on my wall. 5150 is hardly the last word in opulence. A newly expanded studio looks rather bland, something like a large tool shed, but no one is offended. We are, after all, standing in the presence of the temple of the distortion, the grand mosque of two-handed tapping and devastatingly heavy squealing. Maureen O'Connor, Van Halen's super efficient publicist, appears and leads us inside. You can tell Maureen's a pro. She politely pretends not to notice my partner's maniacal grin and later refrains from calling the authorities. when he stubbornly insists on addressing Edward as sire. Come on. Unfortunately, there's little time to gawk, and we're quickly hustled to a privileged spot behind the band's new API recording console. Maureen plays a tape of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge in the DAT machine and pumps the volume up to vicious, cornea-popping levels. Engineer-producer Andy Johns from Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and producer Ted Templeman have done a hell of a job capturing the band's explosive rhythm section. All right, this is the dawn of a new era for you. You've released a new album, co-created a new guitar, and worked with a new producer to revamp the studio. What's this part of the grand design? Was this part of some grand design? Believe it or not, no. We started our tour in '88 and ended in Japan in February of '89. We consciously took a whole year off, during which I barely touched the guitar. We saw each other socially, but we didn't do any work. Then in the early part of last year, we sat together and discussed what we wanted to accomplish, and everything just started falling into place. See if we got any more snippets in here. What did Andy Johns bring to the record? He brought rock and roll inspiration. More importantly, he's the first engineer to capture the sound of Van Halen's rhythm section. The bottom line is, if Al is happy, then I'm happy. It isn't hard to get a great guitar sound. It's much harder to get a fantastic acoustic drum sound, which I think Andy did. And this is also the first time I've really heard Mike on any of our records. We really took our time on the actual recording process and made sure each one of us was happy with the sound of our instrument. In a way, it's the ideal Van Halen record. Pretty cool hearing him talk about For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge like that. Looks like Paul Gilbert just sneezed when they took this picture. He's a skinny dude, man. He looks all of 96 pounds in that picture. Love Paul Gilbert, though. He's a great guy, great player. But it does look like he sneezed. What kind of 12-string did you use? It's a guitar developed by Roger Griffin, who works out at Gibson's Custom Shop. We worked together on my Steinberger guitars. His Custom 12 has these small Smith pickups on them and look like something between a single coil and a humbucker. The solo on Pound Cake sounds like you were using a new neck pickup. You're right. It was like, all right, I've got a new toy. The neck pickup is all over this record. Sounds like you dug your old wah-wah out of the closet. You use it quite a bit. People always ask me what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking crap. It was pretty spontaneous. A wah-wah happened to be floating around the studio. I plugged it in, and that was that. And I think that was because it was handy. I used it on several tracks. You function on an intuitive level, just letting things flow. Whenever I try to plan something, it never seems to work out. So why plan? It only seems to lead to disappointment. All right, for a long time, Zeke Clark was Ed's tech, and this is Matt Brook. So it says here he knew Eddie for 2 years before becoming the King's guitar tech. They played on the same softball team. I followed him in the batting order. The self-confessed okay hitter says it was his ability to smash the long ball that impressed Ed, but his uncanny ability to troubleshoot guitars and amps, a talent he cultivated working long hours at a Los Angeles-based studio rental service owned by local engineer Andy Brower. We used to service the major studios in town, says Brook. On any given day, we'd get calls from Michael Jackson or Guns N' Roses. Sounds like a great job. Brook explains that while the guitarist used a variety of amplifiers for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, his primary workhorses were his 89 Soldano Slow 100 and the new 5150 PV prototype and his Marshall Super Lead. We also used a prototype Bob Bradshaw preamp on the rhythm part to The Dream Is Over. As I recall, Bob brought it over and Ed thought it sounded great. You can really hear it on the beginning of Over because the guitar part is really isolated. Though I was stunned, Ed had ditched his Marshall in favor of a Soldano. Surprisingly, his tone hadn't changed all that much. I think that has a lot to do with the new Music Man guitar and his playing technique. It doesn't seem to matter what he uses at all. It all ends up sounding like Ed. So much of what Ed is about is in his hands. Ed used his Marshall sparingly, and when he did, it was using his in conjunction with the Dan Electro 6-string bass. It's a really unique sound. In fact, after the record comes out, I predict, and we're on page 81, that goes to 107, so we're not going there. We'll figure out what he predicts later. All right, Digitech GSP 1, or GSP 7. I didn't even know it was out. I got one of these Sans amps. These Sans amp pedals are awesome. They are fantastic. Still one of my favorite stomp boxes. And they record direct. Fantastic. Every time I saw this ad, I thought this amp was going to fall over like forwards or backwards. He was going to break his neck. Whippersnapper. What's this here? Eddie once said that Andy and the band built the car and I painted and polished it. So that's Andy Johns. What was your role on the album? Eddie once said that Andy and the band built the car and I painted and polished it. The album was well underway when I became involved. Basically, I was there for the last 5 months of production. Oh, that's not Andy Johns. That's Ted Templeman. I'm so sorry. I was misreading. So that's Ted. Rare picture of him. Basically, I was there for the last 5 months of production. I was brought in to help to complete the unfinished thoughts. I also know how to get the band to work quickly. I produced their first 6 albums, and each of them was created in short periods of time between tours. So in other words, Warner Brothers paid him money to go in and say chop chop, and he gets some producer credits because he was probably promised he'd get that. But that album was all Andy and Ed. I know Ted worked on some vocals, from what I've read. Did you find 5150's informal atmosphere conducive to work? It was a definite plus. I think the tracks are so good because the band was free to exercise their art. We actually discussed moving to another studio, but I was the one who nixed the idea. Yeah, I doubt Van Halen were going to go to another studio. There's Mike. Mikey playing that Fender bass. Solid as a rock and better looking than Kiss's Gene Simmons, Van Halen's Michael Anthony gets his chance to step forward to prove his mettle on the band's For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. It's nice to see Mike get some credit and some spotlights on stuff. Here he is playing the Jack Daniels bass. You must be psyched about this record. The bass is really kicking. I don't want to knock out former producer Don Landee, but he was always like little bass, and he was a little bass and drum shy. This album is much heavier. It captures how the band sounds in live performance. I have to agree. That For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour, when I saw them in front row in Nashville, it sounded amazing, and it sounded just like For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. They sounded just like the record. That is the sound of that band, or was. This album is the most adventurous than some of your past efforts. Was that by design? Not really. I don't think we do anything consciously. Laughs. I think the sound really sparked us. It opened us up. I imagine it did. New gear, new studio, everything. Check out the Rockman Xp 100. I would love to get one of these. That would be cool. These things are rare and they're very expensive now. Trying to find them in mint condition is almost impossible. You could tear them apart. They could pull apart in stereo, and they had Jensen speakers in them. Pretty cool. Look at the half stack here. Boy, that'd be worth a lot of money if you had a really nice one. Oh, Mikey's got a big interview here. Mikey's got a few pages talking about Ampeg. What song gave you the most headaches? He says In and Out, because I had to pick pick to keep the rhythm from sounding mushy, and I rarely use one. The song was difficult in the first place because I had to play a steady stream of 16th notes throughout. I started by using a lot of wrist action, but the sound wasn't powerful enough. It wasn't until my whole arm and wrist completely tightened up that I was able to really lay into the strings and get the heaviness and consistency I wanted. I was using my whole arm as a hammer. My bass really took a beating on that one, and my arm hurt like hell after every take. They talk a little bit about history of Van Halen, stuff we've heard. Do you remember the Van Halen Audition? It was really strange. I met Ed and Al in a garage in Pasadena, and they just started playing all this crazy stuff in odd time signatures. I never heard a rock band get off on that kind of outside stuff before. It really excited me. All the bands I played in were really straight ahead. I guess I surprised them because I hung right in. Surviving members of Lynyrd Skynyrd on tour in '91. I remember that. They came to Nashville and sold out Starwood Amphitheater. I did not go, but I remember when that happened. There's a young Slash. Gene Simmons, Kiss bassist, produced the band's first demo. What was that like? Well, Gene is huge, and I'm 5'6", so I couldn't see the dude's face. My first impression of him was he was a great businessman. He had a real no-nonsense, business-oriented look about him, and that's hard to describe. When he first saw our band, he came up to us and said, "I can make you stars." Your bass style is similar to Gene's in that you're both very solid players. What a lame question or comment. I like to think I'm a little better looking, LOL, or he laughs. Here's a good question. How would you describe each member of the band? That's really hard because when you know people as long as I've known them, it's difficult to be objective. The guys in the band are my best friends, but let me try to give it a shot. Edward never basks in his own glory. He's always been down to earth. He also never restricts himself to any rules. When I first joined the band, I visited him at his home, and he was cutting up a guitar. I said, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" "Man, I've seen him buy these beautiful vintage guitars and just tear them up." He's always been like that. Al is Mr. Rock Solid. He's the leader, and that's the way a drummer should be. A lot of drummers play with bands. Alex makes you play with him. Sammy, he's a lead singer. What can I say? Lead singers are the same. Sammy is the guy with endless energy. If it ever gets too dull in the studio, we just give him a call. He always has an attitude and gets his 20 licks in before you even have a chance to open your mouth. That's what it's like to be a lead singer. If they're quiet or withdrawn, they might as well play bass. Here's some more Eddie. This is not Eddie talking here. Do you ever put solos together via punch-ins in the studio? Hell yes, I admit it. I'm not proud. Jump, for example, was punched in. You can hear that there are two distinct parts in that solo. I can't even remember what I played originally. All I remember is what's recorded, pieced together version that everyone knows. How many takes do you usually do? No more than 3. Do you keep them all? No. And that scared the hell out of me and Andy. I'd say, "Man, I can beat that take. Just record over it." Andy would always look at me very suspiciously and say, "Oh, Eddie, I don't know." But really, I never worry about it because the solo ain't going to make or break a tune. A solo should just highlight the song. You and Alex always have had a tremendous musical affinity. Are there any areas where the two of you don't mesh? I'm always screwing around with time because I never count. The solo in Pound Cake, for example, goes 4 bars, another 4 bars, then 2 bars. Al kept insisting that it wasn't finished. He likes to count. I never do. I'm strictly feel. That's how I play. Maybe just because I'm lazy, I don't know. Top of the World features the riff at the end of the Fade Out to Jump. Wow, you noticed that. I almost didn't put that on the record because everything else seemed so new and fresh. Andy forced me to put it in there. He kept saying, I love that song. You have to put it on the record. I used my Hop for Teacher Gibson Flying V and my Marshall on that tune, which was cool. We had 5 other tunes that didn't make it on the album. I would have preferred to use Pleasure Dome, or I would have preferred to use those 5 that didn't make it. Wow, there's 5 songs they recorded that didn't make For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. How about that? I wonder if they appeared on Balance or somewhere else. All right, so that was probably the coolest revelation for me, breaking out this old magazine. There's some Trent Reznor Anarchy stuff. Sorry, I'm going to pass over Dave Navarro and Trent talking about Anarchy. Never even heard that. I need to go back and look up that stuff, though. I bet you it's kind of neat in retrospect. Maybe it was huge and I'm just out of touch. Stu Ham talking there. This dude played for Arsenio Hall. I thought I recognized him. Warwick basses, man. What a chunk of wood. Very cool. Here's some reviews. Black Eyed Susan. How much was Guitar World back then? $20 for 12 issues. Kind of like Crybabies are $69. Guitar has always been a year for $20. Armored Saint review, 3.5 stars. Bang Tango, 3 stars. Bang Tango. I actually saw those guys in Nashville right before COVID. They weren't that good. Faster Pussycat headlined, and Faster Pussycat kicked butt. Look, LA Gun got 2.5 stars. Hollywood Vampires was the name of their album. How about that? Forced Entry. Nice. The Outsiders. Glenn Hegelson got just 1 star, man. Look at this. This is a harsh review, man. Old Glenn got 1 star. And here's his review. You like pretty? You like vacant? You like acoustic guitars that whisper sweet finger picking nothings in your ear? Then hurry on down to your local Candyland and pick up Glenn Helgeson's Rising Current. Otherwise, join anxious, depressed people everywhere in flipping the bird to this new age kingdom come. Holy smokes. Who did he make mad? Check this out. There's no grunge, nothing, no reviews in here. And it was about to all change. Vicious Rumors, 3.5 stars. I'd like to go back and listen to some of these and give them an actual review. Sun Seals, the Cave Dogs. I don't know any of these people. Carvin. I bet you that sounds terrible. I had an Ovation that looked just like that. Those guitars had round backs and you could never sit down with them or stand up with them. They just try to slide right off your body. You couldn't stand with them, man. They were just weird. They sounded all right. What is this? What in the heck? Check that out. That was kind of... That's like gent. Stuart Box designed that. Steinberger double ball tremolo system modified by Wilkinson and stereo wiring. Holy crap. No thanks, but you know. Dude, there's Zach. Unbearded Zach. Confederate flag Les Paul. Rocking the Guitar World. Got the straight hair. Broke out the flat iron. Shaved. Who is that man? Bunch of people I don't know. Metal Method, always in the catalogs. Trading Licks. Tom Petty. Back then I thought about, Tom Petty and Mike Campbell, and I was like, man, these are just kind of older dudes. But I love Tom Petty, love Mike Campbell. And Mike Campbell's worth like $80 million, man. This is like the salt of rock and roll, man. Great stuff, great tone, cool dude. Refugee, transcribed there. Cool. Get past this. See if there's anything else after this. And we'll be done, folks. Guitar back issues. It's $5.50 for back issues back then. Doesn't say anything about shipping, I don't see. Cool. You can get pics with your name on it. I used to do that. That's fun. They were expensive, getting pics with your name on it. I played in some bands where I'd throw some pics out in the audience, and if I was leaving the club and I saw my pics out on the floor because no one took them, I'd take them back home with me. I was like, that's like a quarter sitting on the floor. Do the walk of shame and pick your own pics up off the floor. That's always fun. Life of Rock and Roll. Hamer. Looks like a Paul Reed Smith. Or similar. Cool. And I think that was the start of the valve state. Wow. A lot of weird stuff in this. Very eye-opening. Saw Valve State at Guitar Center today ahead, and they wanted $225 for it. So there you go. We saw where that went. There it is, September 1991. Van Halen returns. Thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe, comment below.